I have an idea that is not just worth sharing, but must be shared. And that idea is this: big business can be good. You can make that happen. Now, that might seem counterintuitive in light of the Gulf oil spill, the financial crisis, countless other headlines. So let me just say that again. Big business can be good. You can make that happen. I'm going to tell you how, but first let me tell you why I believe this is true. When I joined BP in 1999, yes, that BP, I was convinced that business was a force for good in the world. After college, I had served with an AmeriCorps program called City Year and gotten to know the program's corporate sponsors who were funding our year of community service. I had worked in the New York City mayor's office where companies were wooed for the jobs and revenue that they bring in. I was earning my MBA from the Yale School of Management, whose mission is to train leaders for business and society, and whose alumni ranks are filled with people using the tools of business for social good. And of course, like most citizens of the world, I'd benefited from the products and services of companies since before I was born, right? Medical equipment, the roof over our heads, food, books, etc. When I joined BP, it was run by John Brown, who not long before I joined had earned the praise of environmentalists and the wrath of his big oil peers for acknowledging the realities of climate change and urging action. He was equally progressive in recognizing that investing in the well-being of the people living around BP's projects was the right thing to do and good for business. So I spent 2.5 years in Indonesia making sure that a liquefied natural gas plant that we were building in a remote part of the country would actually benefit the people living nearby. So I sat on dirt floors with villagers. I schlepped clipboard-carrying international experts through the rainforest. And I set up programs on everything from education to entrepreneurship. Now, BP will be in that area for at least 40 years, probably more, so it would be foolish to declare victory. But so far, with the plant up and running, signs are good. Levels of employment, health, education have all improved. And not everything is perfect, but you certainly don't see the kind of violence and social strife that you tend to see around oil, gas, and mining projects around the world. That experience led me to believe that the interests of business and the interests of society could be aligned, given the right leadership, staff, and resources. And I held that belief through my next post in China, where my job was to implement international safety standards as we were building dormitories for 40,000 migrant construction workers. So limiting how many men slept in a room, making sure there were smoke detectors, that kind of thing. It was not standard practice there, but another obvious win-win for the company and for human welfare. And then at BP's headquarters in London, I worked with colleagues in Angola, Colombia, elsewhere, to develop a new human rights policy for the company. And throughout all of that time, I was working with colleagues who wanted to do better for the communities that we were affecting, with the added bonus that thriving communities make for thriving business. I left BP in 2008 for the opportunity to join a United Nations effort to prevent and address corporate-related human rights abuses across all industries. And that just ended in June. We developed a set of guiding principles that were endorsed by the UN Human Rights Council. Okay, but despite these many years of hard work, I clearly haven't managed to eliminate the problem of human rights abuses linked to business, right? I clearly didn't even manage to sort out BP, as might be obvious from the Deepwater Horizon disaster last year. So with BP, I think we did some useful, important work around particular projects. But now looking back, it's clear to me that the ethos that I experienced and even the processes and standards that I implemented were not integrated across the company. So as you might imagine, 12 years after I first joined BP, my views on business have evolved. So I do still believe that business can be a force for good in the world. I am still a corporate idealist. In fact, it's become frighteningly obvious that we must make sure that business works in our best interests. All of the biggest problems that we face today in society, climate change, food and water shortages, economic disparities, all of those can either be solved or exacerbated by business. Here's a fact. There are thousands of people inside companies around the world fighting the good fight each and every day. But they come up against real obstacles. I know I was one of those people inside BP, and it can be quite frustrating and quite isolating. And I wish I'd had some kind of insider's guide to help make my company do better in the world. I mean, in fact, I wish I'd had some kind of guide to making all companies do better in the world, whether I work there or not. So today I propose a manifesto based on my experience working in and with big business, and on the experience of others I've worked with over the years. Now, if you're starting to think, oh, well, I'm not in business, I don't think this is relevant to me, well, think again. Because we all have influence over how companies behave. Every purchase you make, every link you click on, everything you like on Facebook, every candidate you vote for, every action sends a signal to multiple companies. And companies respond to those signals as much, if not more, than they respond to laws. So Nike finally took responsibility for its Asian factories, not because they were required to by law anywhere, but because once campaigners uncovered the working conditions in those factories, Nike customers and the general public held boycotts and expressed outrage. Similarly, the work that I did at BP was not required by any government, but it was demanded by human rights groups, by company neighbors and investors, and by many of us inside the company. We have to use the power that we already have to make business work in our best interests, because it can and it must, and I believe that it will if we start paying attention. So, a manifesto for the corporate idealist. Recognizing that companies have the ingenuity and the drive to be the engines of human progress, as they have been for centuries, but that they can also cause great harm to people and planet. Recognizing that strong, effective regulation is critical, but insufficient on its own. Recognizing that I have the power and the responsibility to make business work in the best interests of society. These are the actions that I will take, the principles that I will uphold. Number one, learn and improve the tools of business. So I didn't need the finance and accounting that I learned in business school to talk to those Indonesian villagers, but I did need it to translate their needs into language that my colleagues in the company could understand and act on. I've seen people come into companies with grand ideas, but they can't calculate return on investment or read a balance sheet. And we need people who think about human rights and sustainability to sit at the grown-up table. And in order to do that, they need to be fluent in the language and the drivers of business. Number two, listen. This might seem pretty basic that a company should listen to its stakeholders, but let me tell you a story. So when I first moved to China for BP, this was 4 years after the company had legally changed its name, officially changed its name from British Petroleum to BP, but the Chinese staff were still calling it British Petroleum, and I kept asking people why, and no one would tell me. They would sort of shrug and giggle. And finally, a friend outside of the company told me that in Mandarin, B can sound like a part of the female anatomy, and P can sound like to pass gas. So the venerable British Petroleum had renamed itself Vagina Fart. Right, funny, right? But if a company can't listen to its own employees in a pretty major market who are putting their hand up and saying, excuse me, there's a problem here? What does that say about its ability to listen to concerns about human rights and the environment? Number three, build community. So the problem is not with the 22-year-olds fresh out of college or the 29-year-olds out of business school. I speak to them all the time. They are hungry to put their smarts and their ideals to work, and I think they're going to stay fired up for a while. The problem is with the, say, 40 or 45-year-old who's on the cusp of promotion to senior management, who can either engage in what feels like an uphill battle with his or her manager about why they should do something differently that might cost more in the short term but will be better for the business and the planet in the long term, or just keep quiet and say, you know what, I'm not going to rock the boat right now. Let me just get this promotion. I'll be able to affect greater change when I'm in a more senior position. But pushing for change effectively is using a muscle that needs regular exercise, or else it will atrophy. And that decision not to push is then emulated by other people in the company who are looking for signals on how to succeed. Those soon-to-be leaders who already have experience and influence, those are the ones that need connections with peers doing similar work across different companies. I've been part of a number of initiatives in which business people come together, ostensibly to develop a set of reports or tools or principles on a particular issue. So the voluntary principles on security and human rights, the Business Leaders Initiative on human rights. There are others. But the products are not why the same people kept coming back to those meetings every couple months. They're not why I kept coming back. We all kept coming back because we were building a community of people who were facing the same obstacles in our companies, the same arguments from our lawyers, and we were reaffirmed in our instincts that there was a better way to do business. We could stay up to date on what other companies were doing, what arguments were working, what pilot projects to try. And after these meetings, we were re-energized and ready to go back into our companies and fight the good fight, and we were more effective in doing so. Number 4, spread the stories of people whose lives we are affecting. Again, as I said, spreadsheets are important, but at the end of the day, we're talking about people, not numbers. And you can't visit a village that's been buried under tailings from a copper mine, or visit a factory where a girl is hunched over stitching the same piece of shoe for 100 hours a week, and not know with certainty that you have to use whatever leverage you have and make sure everyone you know does the same. And not everyone, of course, can go to these places and meet these people, so we have to keep telling their stories and remind ourselves that every decision here affects a worldwide supply chain of real human beings with hopes and families and dreams. And that's why I'm here today, because I've seen how companies can help or hurt people, and I know that you can help decide which way that goes. So I've begun playing a little game with myself. I invite you to play along as well. So if something's not green, I'm calling it death. So I don't want to invest in this green mutual fund. The returns have been kind of average this year. I'm going to invest in this death fund instead. Oh, I don't know, the fair trade coffee is like $1 more per pound. I'm going to get the slave trade coffee instead. So, oh, honey, don't buy the organic meat. It's to get the meat of mass destruction. Try it. Try it. See if it helps you reward the company behavior that you want to see. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. That stuff costs more. Right? Why don't I save money now, and then later in life I can be a philanthropist and do lots of good then, right? Okay, well, sorry, that's not good enough for the state of the world today. We have to renounce this carbon offset model of living. I mean, I think carbon offsets, they're a nifty invention, but to me they're also a little bit like having a piece of chocolate cake and drinking a Diet Coke and thinking that they cancel each other out, right? We all do that. I don't care how many youth soccer teams or charity bike rides a company sponsors, or how many like super cool, innovative, beautiful products it puts out there, if it can't pay people a decent wage and stop polluting. So that is my proposed manifesto for the corporate idealist. Learn and improve the tools of business, listen, build community, share stories, renounce the carbon offset model of living. This manifesto is not for people who believe that no good can come out of business and we have to somehow try to stop it. They can have their own manifesto. I think that train has left the station and we will be living with big business for a long time. Now, this concept of conscious consumerism or conscious capitalism isn't new. What is new is the unprecedented amount of information out there for us to act on and add to. So go to websites like the Business and Human Rights Resource Center, business-humanrights.org, and look up the brands that you're wearing. See how your smartphone does on Raise Hope for Congo's ranking of the largest electronics companies for their actions against conflict minerals, or on Greenpeace's guide to greener electronics. Download one of the growing number of sustainability fair trade apps. See what hotel chains have signed up to one of the industry codes fighting human trafficking and sex tourism. Ask your favorite hotel chain why it hasn't signed up. Ask it via Twitter. What is also new is this growing number of corporate responsibility and sustainability professionals whose job it is to make companies respond to what customers and the general public demand. But if consumers and the general public don't care, if you don't care, then they won't do nearly as much as they can or should. Individuals have tremendous power over corporations, whether in or outside of those organizations. You have tremendous power. Now, I invite you, I implore you to recognize and exercise that power. You know, use my manifesto, come up with your own, whatever it takes to make you move. Because only then will we learn from what has gone wrong in the past and create the world that we want to see. Thank you.